Hey guys, happy Friday. I thought I would do a YNAB tutorial for you guys. YNAB themselves on YouTube have a ton of really great tutorials and different videos on how to use all the different functions of YNAB. I used Mint for probably about 7 years before I switched over to YNAB, and it was definitely an adjustment, but I much prefer the way that YNAB budgets. And the reason why is because in Mint, it was more like you'd set your budget for the month kind of thing, and it would just sort of track your spending. Whereas with YNAB, you do track your spending, but you can only budget for the amount of money that you actually have. You can future budget a little bit, and I'll show you guys how to do that. But for the most part, you're only budgeting for the money that you have right now, which I think is a much better way to do it. So I've just started like a fresh test budget up here for you guys. So when you first start in YNAB, it automatically gives you all of these different accounts. So depending on how you want to set them up, you can change any of these. You can rename categories. Excuse me. You can delete them. You can hide them. You can change any of these if you want to. You can drag them around if you want to move them around to different categories. If you want to undo and redo stuff in here, you can do that. So yeah, we're going to start off. I'm kind of going to base it around my life. Obviously you would change this for whatever your life is, but we have rent here, lot rent. We don't have a mortgage. We actually don't have electric. Internet we do have, so I'll leave that. Water we don't have to pay. Groceries we have. Transportation, I'm going to rename that to the car loan. Interest and fees, sure, we could leave that. We'll say that's for our credit card. And then let's say we have cell phones. We might also have auto insurance. And let's say we have life insurance. We also have pet insurance. And we'll just say that that's all we have for now. Then true expenses, so auto maintenance, home maintenance, we would leave that. This one we don't need. We live in Canada, we don't really have any medical expenses. Clothing and gifts and giving I would leave on there. Computer replacement. Software subscriptions, I'm just going to rename it subscriptions, but that would be like Netflix, or for us that would be like Netflix, YouTube Premium, Apple Music, Natural Cycles, TubeBuddy, iCloud, that kind of stuff. Stuff I forgot to budget for, I usually just list that as unexpected expenses, but you can leave it that way if you wanted to. Debt payments, you would have any, like if you have personal loans, line of credits, stuff like that. We're leaving our credit card and interest fees up here, but the credit card payments itself would actually go somewhere else. I'll put in my OPD there. But you wouldn't include your credit card payment here, and I'll show you why later. Quality of life goods, so if you were taking vacations, fitness, continuing education, that kind of stuff. Again, we don't, but I'll leave it in here for now. And then just for fun, so dining out, gaming, music, fun money, that kind of thing. So I'm going to take out these two. And so that's kind of our basic categories here. Now, if you wanted to future budget, when you click on a category, if you look on the right hand side, you get all of this extra information in here. So the way I future budget is I would just create a goal, and this would be a monthly funding goal because rent is due every month, and let's say it was $750. So we put that in there and hit OK. So now what you'll see is that I've got this little pie chart here with a zero balance, and it's highlighted in yellow. And if I come down here, it says I've budgeted zero and I need to budget another $750 more to reach my monthly goal. So if I go through and do all of these, and they would all be monthly because they're all due monthly, and I'll just go down the line here. I'm just going to plug in some numbers. They're not necessarily my numbers, but we're just going to put it in there. Okay, so I've just done this first category here for an example. I would recommend going through and doing all of them, or at least that's what I do, but we're just going to leave it like that for now. And then we're going to go in and add accounts. So you can either link your bank account or you can just do it manually. We're just going to do this one manually. So we're going to say we have a checkings account. And we'll say that our account balance is $2,500. So now when you add this in, it'll automatically bring you into your account. So that's this here. This is where you would see all of your transactions. And we can see our starting balance. The amount to be budgeted was $2,500. So if I go back to my budget, now you'll see we have $2,500 to be budgeted. So now what we would do is we would budget all the money that we have right down to a zero balance. So you always want to take care of your true expenses first. So there are 3 different ways that you could go through and do this. So I could just go down line by line and put in, $750 and hit enter. And then go down to the next one and put in $250 and go down to the next one. And you'll notice that they're changing to green with a check mark here. The other option is when I'm in here, I can see on the right hand side again, I get all my information up here and it says goal target 150. So if I click that, it'll automatically budget in the amount. Another way I can do this is I can select the things that I want to budget for. And you'll see that that amount says underfunded $270. If I hit that, it'll automatically fill in everything that I need for each of those categories. And you'll see my to be budgeted amount is going down because I'm putting it into these categories. Now for groceries, I put in $400. Let's say I only wanted to do half the month's groceries, so I would just put in $200 and hit enter. You'll notice now that this pie chart is only halfway full and it's still showing orange. And if I come down here on the right hand side, it'll say budget $200 more to reach your $400 monthly goal. So I could just continue down the line here. We'll say auto maintenance, I wanted to put away $20. These ones we didn't do goals yet, so there's nothing going to be on this side here. Home maintenance, we'll say $20, 20 for clothing, 20 for gifts, 20 for giving, 60 for computer replacement, 60 for subscriptions, and $100 for unexpected expenses. Now let's say we had a $150 debt payment here, putting $50 away for vacation, $40 away for a gym membership, $140 for dining out, and let's say we spent the remaining $120 there on fun money. Okay, so now you've got what's called a zero-based budget, and this is what you want. You want to tell every dollar what it's going to do, because if you don't, you're just going to spend it and you're not going to understand why you had no money at the end of the month. Okay, so now let's go into transactions. So let's say that I went in here and paid my rent. So I would go into checkings, go add a transaction, payee was the landlord, category would be my rent, and let's say I paid the whole $750. I've clicked the C here because it's cleared, it's come out of my bank account right away. If I come back to my budget, you'll see now that my budgeted amount of $750 shows now an activity of minus $750. That was that transaction. And the available amount has grayed out to 0 and we still have that check mark, meaning that we've spent all the money in that account and we're good because we've paid the entire amount that we've budgeted. Now let's say groceries, for example. Let's say we went to the grocery store for groceries, and let's say we spent $210, and you should never overspend if you can help it, but let's just say we bought a whack load of stuff at Costco or something. Now you'll see in groceries, budgeted is still $200, but my activity is $210 because that's how much we spent, and now available I see negative 10 in red. So whenever you see that, that means you've gone over budget somewhere and you need to cover that spending because you didn't have that money there. So what I can do is I can click on this red and it'll say cover this overspending with what. Now we don't want to take any money from our immediate obligations because those have to be paid. Those are non-negotiables. True expenses, we don't want to take money out of there either because even though they aren't bills that are due every month, these are the categories that usually get people in trouble. Like something happens to the car and you didn't have any money set aside for vehicle maintenance. one of our big things used to be something as simple as oil changes. You know, we would get, our light would come on and we'd be like, oh, we're due for an oil change. And then we would not have the money to get oil change done because we hadn't been putting money aside. Same with clothing and stuff like that. So you don't want to take out of true expenses either. You definitely don't want to touch your debt payments. And your next ones would be quality of life or just for fun. So just for fun is the one that you would pull out of first, and then your quality of life goals. So I'm going to take this out of dining out. So if I say cover this with dining out and hit OK, you'll see now that this comes down to 0. And if I come to dining out, what was $140 is now $130. So it's just moved $10 out of this category to cover the overspending here. Okay, so now let's try credit cards. So we're going to say credit card, give it a nickname, credit card, and we'll just say the balance is 0. Okay, so hit next and done. So now we have a credit card here. So these are two separate accounts, right? So you can see our groceries and our rent payments out of our checkings account, and then a separate one for our credit card. Now, if we come into budget, you'll see YNAB's automatically generated credit card payments account. So I'm going to show you how this works. Let's say that our cell phone bills came off of our credit card every month. We're going to add a transaction onto credit card, and it went to the cell phone company, and the budget is cell phones, and it was the $100. Now if I come into my budget and I look at cell phones, you'll see that we had a budget of 100, a transaction of 100, and grayed out to 0. But what you'll notice now is that the credit card has $100 in here and an activity of 100, but no budgeted amount. Now the reason for this is because we didn't budget any money to go on the credit card. Instead, we budgeted for our cell phone bill. So when that transaction came up, YNAB goes and pulls that $100 out of the cell phones and says, okay, that transaction has gone through, and it recognizes that it went onto the credit card. So now it's just moving that $100 up so that we know, okay, we have to make a payment of $100 to our credit card. So now what does that look like? So let's say I made that payment. So I would put in credit card, and you'll notice here it comes up with payments and transfers to or from credit card. To or from credit card. So we wouldn't put in credit card company. We want it to show up as a transfer to or from the credit card. It'll tell you the category is not needed, and we would put in $100, right? Because we're transferring $100 from our credit or from our checkings account onto our credit card. Now if I undo that real quick, you'll just see here. So we had $1,540 in our checkings account and a balance of $100 on our credit card. Once we made that payment, you'll see YNAB takes it out of our checkings and put it onto our credit card. And now you'll see up here that we've got a balance of 0 lining up everywhere. Now credit cards are probably the most confusing part of YNAB, but that's what this is doing. So every time you make a transaction on your credit card, YNAB automatically tracks that so that you know how much you have to pay onto it. That way you're not going back into debt. Okay, now let's go through another example here. Let's say that you had an emergency come up. Had to, let's say, get something fixed to the vehicle. You don't have your emergency fund yet, and you only had $20 in there. So you had to put it on your credit card. So let's say you were at the mechanics. It's for auto maintenance, and let's say it cost you $210. So now you're going to see you had $20 budgeted, you spent $210, so you're over budget by $190. And you might be thinking, well, if I'm over budget, why isn't this showing up in red? Well, that's because it went on your credit card. So you'll see an icon of a little credit card with an exclamation mark. So this is telling you that technically you're not over budget in the sense that you didn't have the money, but you didn't have the money budgeted. Right? So if this had come out of your checkings account, it would show up in red because you really don't have that money there. On the credit card, you've used your credit to pay for it. So if I come up to credit card, there's only $20 available for the payment because $20 is all we had budgeted here. That's the only real money that we had. So now we have to try and cover for this. Now, you could either wait until your next paycheck and then cover that spending, or, like me, I try to cover it within my budget. So if I click on this and go cover this overspending with, I would probably take it out of unexpected expenses because it was an unexpected expense. Now you'll see I only have $90 to cover. And then I would probably come out of one of my just for fun. So I'm going to take it out of the fun money. So now this is covered. You'll see that my credit card payment has gone up to $210 and my fun money has come down to $30 and my auto maintenance is back at $0. So that's kind of how credit cards work. Now, I've learned my lesson. I don't want that to happen again. So I'm going to create a savings goal now. So we're going to create a new category. And we're going to save for an emergency fund. Now the minimum you should have in an emergency fund is $1,000. That covers most basic emergencies. So I'm going to make this a goal, and I could either do a target category balance or a target category balance by date. I'm going to do it by date and say that I want to get $1,000 into my emergency fund by June of this year. Now that I've made that goal, it'll automatically tell me what I need to budget every month to stay on track. So let's say I get paid again. Any income would always go into your to be budgeted. And let's say I got paid $1,500. So now again we have $1,500 to be budgeted. So I want to budget that $200 towards my emergency fund. And it doesn't look like I have anything else that needs to be budgeted for. I might put $100 back in my unexpected expenses, just to be safe. And then I could either go forward to the next month and start budgeting into next month if I wanted to. Or, since I have so much left over, I'd probably just go back in and budget for the rest of groceries, and then take the rest and put it on to the emergency fund. Now this remaining $210, I would probably take that extra payment and put it on to the OPD. Or whatever debt that I did have, because, you know, nobody likes debt. Okay, now let's start a different scenario. Let's say that you had a credit card with a $1,500 balance. Okay, and let's say that we got paid again, like it's later on in the month. Say we got $1,500 again. And now we have to budget this. So with the credit card, you can create goals for a credit card as well. So you could pay off your balance by a certain date or pay off a specific amount every month. Now, let's say I wanted to pay off that full $1,500 by June. If I put that in there and hit OK, it'll tell me how much I need to budget every month. So let's add in my $250, $58. So you see I've got my $258 that I budgeted, plus my $210 of regular payments from that auto emergency that we had, and my total payment here. So let's make that payment of $468. And again, you'll see YNAB is automatically applying that to the credit card. And everything is zeroed out here. I've made my extra payment. And then it'll say you're on track. Now I have a lot of money here. If I wanted to pay off the whole balance, I could just add in the remaining $1,032 and make that payment to pay it off. Or I could just continue to pay every month and put that money towards something else, like extra debt payments, which, I mean, your credit card should be your #1 priority. But that's kind of how setting up budgets in YNAB work. Again, I really like the ability to set up monthly goals here, because it just kind of helps you stay on track. Like, let's say I wanted to set up goals for all of these. Like, we wanted to put in $80 every month for home improvement and $40 a month for clothing. And this way you get like an accurate snapshot of what you need to spend every month. right? And so if you went through and did that for every category, when you click on it, it'll tell you like how much more money you need to budget. And when you click it, YNAB will just throw it in there. So if we went into March, let's say, now I only have the goals put in for these things here that are showing in orange, but you can see it'll tell me underfunded, 2,338. If I started budgeting into the next month, like let's say I budgeted for rent, because again, we still had that money that we could budget here for. And let's budget for the car loan. And let's budget for just a few other things, just get this balance down to 0. And we'll just say $32 towards groceries, okay? So there, we've partially budgeted for things. So my immediate obligations now, I'm only underfunded by $758. Whereas if I took all of these things out, you'll see that I'm underfunded by $1,880. So that's kind of how YNAB works. I really like it. Again, there is a learning curve to it. There's probably way more information in here as well, but like for example, vacation, let's say that we were going to take a vacation in November to Mexico and we needed $3,400 to do it. So we'll say November of this year and hit OK. Then it'll tell you again how much you need to budget every month to stay on track. So that's how goals work. You can either just set it up for a monthly amount every month, like $80 every month or $40 every month, whatever you want to do. If you're working with cash, you can also add in a cash account. Right, so like for me, I use cash envelopes, and that's usually for all of my sinking funds or true expenses, and then also for my groceries. And it would be for like my dining out and stuff like that. So for something like this, you obviously wouldn't want to look at your underfunded or anything. You would look at your amount available, right? So whatever you have available in your budget here, that's how much you would have in cash. So I would just go to the bank and pull out the $770. And again, this would be a transfer to or from the cash account, $770. And you'll see cash says 0 here. So if I hit save, then you'll see it pulls it out of my checkings account and pulls it into cash, right? And then I would just stuff each of my envelopes with whatever it says I have in YNAB. So I hope that kind of makes sense. I will try to cover that in more detail as I go through the cash envelope stuffing in the following months. If you guys have any questions about how YNAB works, let me know. I'm happy to answer questions or do more demos or whatever you guys think that you need. Like I said, there is definitely a learning curve to this, but I really think it's a really great tool to keeping you on track. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Please feel free to subscribe if you want to see more videos on finances, our debt-free journey, our life living in an RV. It's kind of a mix on this channel. So I appreciate having you guys here, and we will talk to you later. Bye.